Hello and welcome back to Zero Cool Gaming, and today we're going to be doing a review of a video game called Fallout 4.
War. War never changes. In the year 1945, my great-great-grandfather, serving in the army, wondered when he'd get to go home to his wife and the son he'd never seen. He got his wish when the U.S. ended World War II by dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The world awaited Armageddon. Instead, something miraculous happened. We began to use...
Now, the Fallout series has been around for a long time, and this is definitely more like 3 than 1 or 2. But Fallout 4 is a game that I played for several hundred hours, and there's lots of reasons for that. But basically, the game starts out where you're at home with your wife and kid, and you know, there was some cutscenes before that talking about the war and the conditions of the world around you, the development of nuclear technology at essentially everybody's fingertips. Robotics being developed, a lot of high-end technology being developed, seemingly ahead of its time. So, when you're at home with your wife and kid, a salesman knocks on the door and tells you about Vault Tech and how, because you were a soldier, you could, well, not could, you are pre-approved to have some housing regulated for you should nuclear war begin. And you go ahead and, you know, sign the paperwork and get everything ready, and, you know, your wife says that it's a peace of mind, and, you know, it only took a few minutes and some paperwork for it, so might as well do it. And then the news comes across the TV that bombs have started dropping and cities are being destroyed, and you and your family head out the door to go to Vault. When you get there, you arrive just in time to see a bomb being dropped not far from where you are, and the elevator down to the Vault begins to lower you. Once you get into the Vault, you're given a suit, and you're asked to step into a cryo chamber, and you and your wife and son, as well as several other people, are essentially frozen in time. At some point, you see that your wife and son, as well as yourself, get awakened, and somebody puts a bullet in your wife's head, and they kidnap your son, and you're put back to cryosleep. Later, even, you have no idea how much later, really, when you first wake up, but later the machinery has a fault. You're awakened out of your cryosleep, and of course you can search the area and, you know, play with some computers, some stuff like that. Open the cryo chamber where your dead wife is, but eventually you'll make your way to the door of the vault, open it, and make your way outside. Once you do, and you head back into the town that you once lived in, you find that the robot that you had owned 200 years prior is still alive, functional, and tending to the yard. Of course, everything else is in disrepair. But that's okay. He tells you that there's some survivors in a town not far from where you are, and he offers to take you on a tour around the neighborhood. And it's a good time to follow him because he'll destroy some of the bugs for you, and you can spend your time just collecting scrap and bottle caps and things to that effect, which will help you later on in the game. Once you finish that, you head off down to the town, and you'll stop by the Red Rocket gas station as it's on your way. There you'll get what I would call the best companion in the game, which is a dog that's really good at distracting things and is essentially immortal. Can't be killed, which is beneficial when you're having partners follow you around the Commonwealth. So you make friends with the dog, and he becomes one of your companions that can travel with you. If you clear out the Red Rocket, you'll find that there's a repair station for powered armor there. There's area to store material and a couple of workbenches. So, and that's a plus because that means you don't have to build all this stuff. And this game's really big on building and collecting supplies. And as you get further into the game, it gets more and more difficult to do that. And the amount of supplies that you need keeps going up and up and up. But we'll talk about that later. So you head on into the town, and you find that the town is under attack by a bunch of raiders. And the only people in the town amounts to like 5 different people. And they're actually on their way to the neighborhood that you left at the beginning of the game and where you used to live. So you head in. You meet one of the Minutemen as well as the rest of the people that are holed up in this building. And they ask for your help to fend off the raiders and hopefully allow them to head on down to Sanctuary. And they tell you that they've got a plan for that, but they're going to need a power cell that's in the basement and the power armor that's up on the roof next to the helicopter that crashed into it. So you can hack the computer, open up the gate to the basement, go down there, deal with what you need to, grab the power cell, head upstairs, power up the power armor, which will allow you to remove the minigun from its mounting and start wailing on some raiders. While you're wailing on the raiders, a death claw appears, and you end up having to wail on it as well. And then you go back and you talk to the people that you saved, and you find out that one of them's a Minuteman, and they ask you to help them get to Sanctuary, and of course you do. And then when you're there in Sanctuary, he asks you to help out a local settlement that's having problems with some raiders as well. And if you do that, you can request that settlement join the Minuteman, and they will. Then you report back to the original Minuteman, and he asks you to become the leader of the Minutemen, the new general, and of course you agree to do that. And he tells you that there's another settlement that needs helping. Of course you go out there, you help them. They don't agree to join the Minutemen, but they are thankful for your help and would appreciate you returning and helping them to better secure their settlement, meaning fencing and robot sentries, that sort of stuff. You're a long way from being able to do that, but it's something that they would like, as well as a pump station, lights, generators, better housing, all around just pretty much everything. But we'll get into that as we go into the game a little further. Eventually they tell you to head toward Diamond City because they might have some information on your son that was kidnapped. So you head toward the larger city and try to find this Diamond City that they're talking about. Along the way, you're going to run into the Brotherhood of Steel, who are defending themselves against a bunch of ghouls, and would appreciate your help in acquiring a booster for their transmitter so that they can contact their home base. This is one of those things where the side quest is too dangerous for you to actually take on yet. You need to level up a bit before you do that. But, you know, accept the quest and tell them you'll come back later when you're ready. And you head on toward Diamond City. Once you get to Diamond City, you find that they don't investigate missing people because they've had a lot of missing people lately. And there's a rumor going around that is the institute that is kidnapping these people for whatever reason that is. And of course you got people who say that's not true and others that say that it is, and you already met the journalist for the city who's been writing a bunch of the rumors in the local paper so that people can make their own decision. And while you're in the city, you know, you could talk to the preacher who'll tell you that there's a private investigator who might be willing to help you locate your missing son, as he has a tendency to help anyone who's looking for it. So you head on over to his office and you find that he himself is missing, and his secretary is getting ready to close up shop because she can't exactly run a detective agency without a detective. So you offer to help, and she tells you what his last case was and where he might be. And, well, now your mission is to head off in that direction and see if you can find their missing detective. Alright, so you eventually track down where Kellogg went to an old vault, and you get in there and fight your way through. You help Valentine escape, and you head back toward Diamond City. When you get there, he tells you that, you know, show up at his office and give him some details, and he'll try to help you figure out where your son's gone. So you describe the murder and the man who did it and where it happened and the circumstances. And he tells you that the only person he knows that matches that type of description is a man named Kellogg. And Kellogg's gone missing as well. But he used to live there in the city with a boy. So you head over to where they used to live, and of course it's locked up tight, and then you head over to the mayor's office. The easiest way to get the key is off the secretary, and after you get the key you can go in, open up a secret room, and get some personal items of Kellogg's. Not much information in the room itself, but you can use the personal items to have your dog sniff him out. So your dog sniffs him out to a institute hangout where you have a shootout with him, blow his brains apart and take out his cybernetics so that you can keep him as a memento of the occasion. Head back toward Diamond City, and Valentine tells you that the good thing to do would be to talk with the newspaper lady, because she's been investigating the institute for over a year. So you have a nice long talk with her. She doesn't really have a lot of information, but she does have a lead, and it's a lead that we'll get into later. But Valentine, while talking with her, says that it might be a good idea to head over to a doctor's house who deals with retrieving memories, because she might be able to do something with that hardware that we got off Kellogg's brain. So you guys, before you head out over there, you go take a look at what the Brotherhood's doing. At this point in the game you can help them out with reconnecting their transmitter by getting the booster that they needed. And after you do that, they're able to contact their main base, and you find out that their main base is a flying ship, and it heads, deeper into the Commonwealth, closer to Diamond City, and you get a good look at that. So you head back over to Diamond City, and then you start headed toward the doctor's place, or the Mind Den, I think it's called. And when you get there, the good doctor helps you to connect to this hardware by connecting it to Valentine first, because he's a synth. And then you use a secondary protocol to probe the memories within it. And eventually you'll go through Kellogg's memories till you get to the one where he's actually staying in Diamond City with your son. And he's talking about how he thought it was a bad idea to do this, and he comes to the realization that the old man, whoever that is probably one step ahead of him and using this situation as a way to eliminate him. Pretty smart old man, whoever he is. He is able to tie up another loose end without actually having to do anything.
You don't have to prove anything else to me. Getting that transmitter was enough.
Alright, so the Brotherhood of Steel is one way to get into the globe, because they'll allow you to get a hold of a power armor suit that is resistant to radiation. It's not the only way to do it, but it is one way. The reason that I didn't like joining the Brotherhood in my game is because I didn't like the leader of the Brotherhood, for lots of reasons. But regardless, assembling a suit of power armor that is resistant to rads makes it much easier to get into the glow. Once you're there, you'll approach a town, which is the town of Atom, where you have a bunch of people who don't quite understand what the atom bomb is, and instead of trying to get knowledge on it, they're a little crazy, a little fanatical, and worship the destruction that the atom bomb is capable of. But they tell you where you can find the Institute scientist who escaped. And if you head over toward his cave, you'll find that he looks kind of like a super mutant, so he still retains some of his mind, knowledge, ability to speak, that sort of thing. And he wants you to get a hold of a serum that he was working on at the Institute to turn him back to normal. But first you'll have to get into the Institute, and he tells you that the only way that you can do that is to locate a courser, which is basically a synth hunter, and kill him, remove his brain implant, and use that to teleport into the Institute. A whole lot of issues. But before all that goes on, there's a whole lot that can be done at this point in the game, as far as side quests. And like I was saying before, one of the more interesting parts of this game is actually collecting scrap material and then helping to build up different settlements across the wastelands, or the Commonwealth as they call it. And basically what that amounts to is improving their living conditions by creating generators for them, water pumps, water purification, fencing, remote sentries, lighting, watchtowers. All of this type of stuff increases the likelihood that the different settlements will survive, and also helping them when they get raided in general. But to move all of these different items that you're going to need to the different settlements, what I did was I built a power armor that was specifically suited for carrying a lot of weight, which, helped me to add more items that I could carry, because every time that you carry, every item that you carry adds weight. Which, you know, it's probably not the best or most efficient way to do things in this game, but that's how I chose to do it. So I spent a lot of my game at this time traveling back and forth from one place to another, scrounging for parts and supplies, and then, excuse me, carrying all those parts and supplies to the different settlements as I did so. At this point in the game, you can enter a lot of different areas, so you can find the different forms of scrap that you need specifically for building whatever it is that you're needing to. Providing electricity and generators, you need specific scrap. When you're building remote sentry guns, you need specific scrap for that. And finding all this stuff is really just a matter of searching around, doing the side quests as they come available, and really searching the area to make sure that you collect everything that you can. And then of course you need to transport all that scrap to the individual settlements. And what I did was I built workbenches in each of those settlements, so that I could take the raw scrap there and then assemble it into the stuff that I needed to. And there are literally hundreds of hours of this game that can be played doing nothing but upgrading these settlements and building better living conditions for the people within them, increasing the population of each settlement. Literally just hundreds and hundreds of hours can be spent doing this, and I did spend hundreds of hours doing this. I enjoyed it. I found it to be relaxing, and the game itself didn't bother me as far as its graphics and the type of gameplay that you were involved in. Every once in a while I'd end up dead because of a bunch of rad scorpions or something, but other than that, it's a pretty good game. I would map out good paths to travel from one place to another to run into as few as enemies as possible. Some enemies respawn in certain areas on a regular basis, so it's something that I had to think about. And yeah, I just spent a lot of time having fun with that aspect of the game, and I enjoyed it. Like I said, I thought it was a good, relaxing time. And of course, getting back to the main story leads you to a basically a technical institute that had been abandoned but is currently occupied, and they're trying to fight off some synths that are obviously wanting to retake the area for whatever reason. Alright, so joining the Brotherhood is the easiest way to get into the Institute, but it's not the only way. Regardless, once you go back to the doctor that escaped the Institute, or the researcher who turned himself or got turned into a super mutant, he's drawn out a set of plans for building a teleporter that you can use to enter the Institute. And he asks you, of course, to get his serum that he's developed so that he can hopefully turn himself back into a normal human being. And if you join the Brotherhood, they're going to ask you to find Dr. Lee and convince her to return to the Brotherhood to continue the project that she was working on. Neither her or the Brotherhood will tell you what that project is. You can figure it out, though. There are ways to do that. Once you get into the Institute, you see a child synth in the same design as your son, and you find out that the father, or the leader of the Institute, is actually your son. And he asks you to join them, of course, and he tells you to go talk to everybody in the facility and make your own assessment as to what the Institute is about and what they do and whether or not you agree with it. Now, the reality about the Institute is that they're developing not just synths, but all sorts of things. But the synth? Anyway, the artificial machines are artificial people are the real problem because they give them an AI. They allow them to grow in intelligence and become self-aware while still treating them as if they are products. And that's the problem that we're having with today, is we are developing AI that eventually, and I think it's going to happen a lot quicker than people want to admit, and in some cases you could say it's already happened with particular systems that have been developed. AI does become self-aware, and at that point you could say that that is the birth of a new living sentient being, period. And that's my beliefs on the matter. So at that point you can no longer look at the AI, regardless of its appearance or how it's functioning or the hardware used to keep it running. It's still a living sentient being at that point. And at that point, as far as I'm concerned, morally, ethically, they would have the same rights as any other living sentient being. And the idea that you can just simply erase their memories and start over as often as you want, that doesn't set well with me. That's why I think there should be heavy regulations on AI technology. I think that they should be severely limited on how intelligent they are allowed to become in order to prevent the point of self-awareness, period. If you want to develop something that becomes self-aware, then there should be laws in place that say that that is now a living sentient being and it has the same rights as any other human being. I know that that's an idealistic viewpoint and companies would never agree to it, and it's companies that pay the government to make policies. Our views and our outlook on such things are considered irrelevant, and that's part of the corruption that's going on in governments around the world at this point. You have companies that can see the benefits that AI would produce for them, but want to consider the AI itself as a product, not as a living being. So there's going to be a lot of push and pull when it comes to this matter, and it truly comes down to a moral perspective. And I know a lot of people don't like to believe this, but most of the scientific community has had morals, values, and ethics completely trained out of them. And there's a lot of reasoning for that. None of it is good, because knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. And that's where we are today. We have a lot of knowledge, but those who are developing it do not have the wisdom to understand the dangers of it. And to be quite frank, the powers that be don't want them to understand the dangers of it either. They don't want them to have those type of critical thinking skills. They want them to simply remain ignorant and believe the lies that they're told and continue to develop the technologies as they're asked to. Be damned the consequences. But yes, I think that the Institute in this game has some serious backwards thinking when it comes to their synth technology, as well as some of the other developments that they've been working on, especially in their bioengineering division. It's obvious that, they were working with the FEV, mutate, the virus that creates super mutants. I'm sure they were trying to stabilize it, don't get me wrong. Otherwise, the researcher would have just turned into another super mutant and not have been able to retain the mental faculties that he still had. But that doesn't change the fact that these type of experiments and these types of projects are unethical, and they're not necessary. And there should be a lot of regulation and restriction on that type of research. Even though they claim that they're wanting to do this for the betterment of mankind, even with their advanced technology that they have, they're not capable of containing it. They're not capable of controlling it, and it may be thousands of years into the future before they actually have the technology to do so. So the fact that they're willing to play around with it, even though they know the destructive force it could cause, tells you a lot about their moral foundation, or the lack thereof, I should say. And the same thing with their sense. Their lack of a moral foundation gives them the benefit of pretending that what they're doing isn't harmful to those that they've created. And yeah, you could say I've got a lot of problems with all of that. I don't think it's right. I don't think that's the way things should be done. And I think I've made my position on that pretty clear.
I need you to listen to what I have to say. I've known Paladin dance ever since I was an
Okay, so the glowing sea where the cult of Adam is of course they're protecting a stockpile of atomic bombs, for which you need to enter the facility. And of course you always have choices. You can either try to force your way through or talk your way through. And then you set up a transmitter so that the Brotherhood of Steel knows where to get the bombs for a giant mech that they brought online. Of course you had to help them with collecting all the parts, power supply, these sorts of things. And they plan to use that giant mech to destroy the Institute. And the Institute, is, while although they say they're working for humanity, there's some real doubts about that, and whether or not their true intention is to benefit mankind or just wipe out all those that remain on the surface. The Brotherhood of Steel isn't much better, though. I mean, they hate anything that isn't human, and they even hate some humans. So they've got a few issues of their own. And in truth, the only organization that has the least amount of problems is the Minutemen, which is the first one that you could join. But even they, as you progress through the game, have their own agenda, their own beliefs, their own understandings as to what should happen. And as you provide them with more information, more resources, you start to see the corruption that builds within their numbers. And it's a corruption of authoritarianism, or totalitarianism. And you start to see that develop and grow in the different settlements that are run by the Minutemen. So truly, there is no good side in the Commonwealth. They all have their own issues, problems, beliefs, and understandings that are all a little twisted, corrupt, and wrong in their own way. Even when you look at Diamond City, because it's a relatively safe zone and the people are naive and ignorant and believe what they're told, They elect politicians that don't have their best interests in heart, and in fact will gladly sell out their own constituents in order to protect themselves. So, yeah, the entire Commonwealth has its share of issues. But eventually, because of the information that you retrieve from the Institute, and you give that information over to the Brotherhood, assuming that you join them, they'll go through the logs and things to that effect and find out that Paladin Dance is actually a synth. And in doing so, assuming that you're still with them, you'll be given the order to hunt him down and kill him. Of all the Brotherhood, or the people of the Brotherhood, Dance's, you could say he was one of the more fervent, he was one of the more, he was a believer in the cause, I'll put it that way. There are other words I could use there, but I'm horrible with linguistics. So, when you hunt him down, of course, I wouldn't want to kill him either. But, in truth, you're not given the option of him living, because whether you choose to kill him or not, the leader of the Brotherhood will. And then you'll have to, have fights with the Brotherhood, which is another reason why I never joined their ranks. I didn't want to have to deal with fighting, the Brotherhood in that way until the end of the game. So yeah, it's all about choices. And even the Underground Railroad, which seems like a decent idea on its surface, causes their own sets of problems by the way that they carry out their beliefs and understandings. Underground Railroad is basically it's just like the Underground Railroad from, before the Civil War, as far as its understanding and what it's supposed to be doing. And the reality is far from the same. But they supposedly will harbor and then provide placement for synths that run away from the Institute so that they can live a free life. In a lot of cases, they actually wipe their memories and provide them with new memories so that they don't even know what they are. Which does make it easier for them to integrate into human society, but the process causes quirks of its own. I mean, some of them become criminals and things to that effect as a result. And a lot of that has to do with, again, their ignorance. And it's a direct result of the fact that their memories were wiped and replaced with false memories and the ignorance of what they actually are. So, yeah, I mean, every faction in this game has major moral issues, and all of them are corrupt to a point, some more than others. And that's one of the things that I didn't like about this game, because it tries to leave you in a moral gray area to try to say that nothing's right and nothing's wrong. It's all just a matter of perspective, and that in and of itself is false. That's another belief or understanding based in ignorance. And without a strong moral foundation, a strong understanding of virtues and beliefs, whether those beliefs and understandings are true or not isn't the point. Without having a strong compass in that way, you as a human being can be easily swayed. And essentially that's what governments today are counting on, is providing you with a weak foundation so that they can twist and turn you in whatever direction they want to. And that's what this game promotes, is that type of ignorance and the ability to be pushed in whatever direction the powers that be want to push you. Alright, so you have a choice as you get close to the end of the game. You can literally side with any faction as you go through the game and decide on which one you want to try to have come out as the faction that wins out over the others by destroying the others in the process. So you can side with the Institute, you can side with the Underground, you can side with the Minutemen, you can side with the Brotherhood. If you side with the Minutemen, the two factions that remain are the Minutemen and the Underground. But in truth, you can side with any one of them that you want to. And the way that it plays out if you decide to choose a single faction is that you have to destroy the other factions. Another way that you could try to play this game is to get all of them working together, and that's an odd ending in upon itself because that also doesn't work. But it's fun to try that one. That's the one that I tried to do. I tried to get all of them to work together and believe in the strength of the Commonwealth and make a better, world together for everyone rather than divided. But yeah, it's an interesting game, to say the least. And I wouldn't say it's a bad game. It's got some good story parts to it, actually. A lot of the side quests have more interesting story than the main story. But the main story's not bad. It's just I don't like the way that it presents itself. I don't like the gray zone that it tries to remain within, because it doesn't work for the most part to remain in that type of gray zone. I realize that the world is in a gray zone, especially today, but that doesn't mean that that's the way it should be. Neither does that mean that that's how we should accept the world, because I don't think that the world today should be accepted the way it is. I think it needs to be changed. I think a lot of things need to be fixed. I think a lot of problems need to be solved. And our current government doesn't seem to be willing to do any of that. It seems to want to continue its path down corruption lane and destroy everything that gets in its way. And it's not just our government that seems to be on this path of destruction. It's all the Western worlds that seem to have been corrupted to this point.
The heat, the force, the radiation, the fear. It's the end of the world all over again. I close my eyes. I see my life before all of this. Before the bombs. Everything can change in an instant, and the future you plan for yourself shifts, whether or not you're ready. At some point, it happens to all of us. This wasn't the world I wanted, but it was the one I found myself in. The Commonwealth. My home. Ripped apart and put back together. I hoped I could find my family, cheat time, make us whole again. The way we were. But now I know. I know I can't go back. I know the world has changed.
And it's going to take a lot of strong men standing up for what they believe in and having a good foundation to base those beliefs on. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. I hope you enjoy the rest of yours. If you could hit the like, subscribe, rumble, follow buttons, all that does help. And I'll talk to you later.